The color, Olympus White. The company, Sherwin. This is Hue Review, so let's review. I'm James from the Paint People, and we're about to talk about a paint color called Olympus White. What an amazing name for a paint color. I'm fired up already. This show is all about reviewing as many paint colors as I possibly can before I retire, which, you know, who knows when that'll be. And the way that I like to review colors is quite simple. The 3 V's. The vibe of the color, how versatile it is, and then I'll give you my verdict. Would I use this color in my home? How would I use it? If I would, let's get right into this video, shall we? Let's climb Mount Olympus together. Is Mount Olympus a real place, or is that just in mythology? I don't know. So what's the T on Olympus White? What's the vibe? Not the T, the V. Really, this is a color that is essentially an off-white. It's not quite a white whatsoever. We know this because it has a decent amount of coloration to it. It has a 68 LRV, which means it reflects 68% of the light that hits it. And a real bright white paint, like the ones you might see in Santorini, keeping the Greece theme going, that's a bright white that you'd expect to reflect at least 90% of the light that hits it. So 68 isn't much whatsoever. And this translates to a paint color that is more akin to a light gray. And it is a light cool gray, a bit of a blue gray, to be fair. I do like to mention my honeymoon whenever I can because it was really, really nice. This color sort of reminds me of the white buildings in Santorini, the blue water, and then some storm clouds because it was the one day of the year where it was rainy. Not on my honeymoon. But there is that undeniable gray aspect that mellows out the color and tones it down ever so slightly. Sherwin describes this color as a crisp, lofty white. I wouldn't really describe it as crisp. When I think of crisp in paint colors, I think of those stark whites that are like 85 LRV, 90, even 93. Like a high reflective white to me, that is crisp. That is just clean. Is because it is a cooler leaning off-white and it has that gray aspect. So there is no warmth or yellowing whatsoever that other creamy whites might have. This one does feel frigid, like it has that iciness to it that I think gives it some cleanliness, I suppose. I mean, if you did pair this with a color that was warmer leaning, then that gray aspect, that iciness will be that much more prominent. So that's the vibe. What about versatility? How usable is this kind of color on an interior or an exterior project? I love to talk about practicality when it comes to paint colors because these are colors you will actually use, and you don't want to have to repaint them in 3 months because the color you picked doesn't go with anything. On the interior side of things, I would give Olympus White a mid versatility. And I would say it's maybe more of a mid-mid, not a low-mid, but a mid-mid. Because of the fact that its LRV is pretty user-friendly on interior walls, it's not going to feel like a bright white. It'll feel more like a soft color. So that means it's less likely to wash out and disappear and just become nothing if you have a lot of light coming in. So if you have a big bay window that just brings in a ton of nice, beautiful south-facing light, then Olympus White is less likely to become just blah because it has a somewhat nice level of depth. It's still not at that sort of ideal range of being in the low 60s where it really does become that Goldilocks color that's never really too light or too dark for a lot of situations. But it's still in a good place. The downside is the fact that it is gray. And it's a cool gray, which is not as popular nowadays. And if it is being used, it's usually being used in select spaces, not so much in the main living areas of the home. I do find that people are loving the warmer colors a little bit more, the more organic materials and textures, even outside of paint. There isn't a ton of it for Olympus White, but I think in small doses it can still function fine. Now on the exterior side of things, I would maybe call this a mid as well. I do favor the more organic colors outside, whether it's more taupe leaning, those stone colors, or gray, browny greens I really enjoy for whatever reason. But this color does veer towards the blue side of things. However, it doesn't feel overly blue, so it can incorporate with other cooler neutrals as well in a big color scheme. Whether you want to go with maybe like a navy of some sort or like a cooler charcoaly off black. There isn't an overabundance of the blue, which can throw things off. Kind of like Moon Mist from last week. I'll leave that color alone. It's fine. It's fine. I was a bit hard on it, I feel. So what about my verdict? What do I really think about Olympus White? just my gut feelings on this color. Well, first of all, I'll tell you how I would use it. Where I would put it on the Paint People palette pyramid. Is it a main color? Is it a support color? Or is it a finishing color? I think this is a good support color. I think Olympus White can potentially go, throughout your home if you really wanted to, but I more so see it as a great secondary color in certain spaces that call for that cooler sort of chill feel. Places like bathrooms, but not necessarily just that. An office could use this color pretty well. And then in rare cases, a front foyer, if you want something a little more airy, I think this color could work in those situations, especially with like a really crisp white trim. I think it could look nice. So that's how I would use it. But would I? Would I use Olympus White? Sure, but mainly because I love Greece so much. Give me a Saganaki any day of the week and I'll be munching. Also Yitos. But seriously, I do think that occasionally a cooler gray is fine. And I think the balance here in this color between gray and blue is just good enough that I could potentially use it at some point. Who knows? Future James knows, that's who. So that's a review. And if you want to see a palette pyramid with Olympus White somewhere in it, let me know in the comment section below and I'll put it together. Remember that moon mist color I was talking about? Here's my review on it. It wasn't pretty.